David. Tomorrow I will turn 80 years old. I was in the hangar next to my farmhouse, looking at my collection of classic cars. I was standing next to my first car, a 1964 Pontiac Tempest. I remember haggling with the owner of this car. The landfill was located 20 miles north of Gladwin. The landfill reminded me of the television show Sanford and Son. The car was in terrible condition, one step away from being scrapped. The man wanted $1,200 for her. I think he thought he had found a simpleton. "I'll give you $500 for it," I offered. "Do it for $1,000 because it's a convertible and I have a new top for her," he counterattacked. In the end, we agreed to $700 for the car. "Hi, my name is David Winters. I'm 5 feet 9 inches tall and weigh 170 pounds. I have dark brown hair and blue eyes. I'm in great shape. In high school, I ran cross-country in the fall and participated in track and field in the spring. Between them, I worked out in the gym. Denise Tremon was my girlfriend. We only dated in junior and senior high school. We both lost our virginities to each other. Everyone thought that we would get married and be happy all our lives. We both graduated from high school in the spring of 2000. Dee was not the most beautiful girl in our class, but we loved each other. She had brown hair and brown eyes. She was 5 feet 3 inches tall and weighed 125 pounds. Her figure was average, 34B 25-35. Her legs were her best feature. She wasn't particularly into sports, but was an excellent dancer. She went to dance classes once a week in the evenings. She also had a wonderful voice. She played the flute in the orchestra. We both lived in Saginaw County. I wasn't the smartest person in school. I graduated in the middle of the pack with a C+ average. After high school, we both planned to attend Delta Junior College. In college, I planned to study general management. Dee was smart in school, with a grade point average above a B. She was always on the honor roll. Delta had a very good nursing course. When she graduated from Delta, she wanted to get a job as a nurse at one of the local hospitals. My family owned a small concrete company. The company specialized in installing decks, driveways, and sidewalks for new buildings. We also had a small block manufacturing business. In the early 1990s, the block manufacturing business boomed. At this time, my father left the concrete business. Now, in addition to blocks, we sell bricks, brick pavers, concrete accessories, concrete paint and stamped patterns, and many other related materials. My father and my 2 older sisters ran the business. I helped in the summer, after school, and on Saturdays. They were preparing me to replace my father when he retired. A few years before I graduated from school, my father bought a huge place with a large building. He was going to convert it into our new retail store. The current store was located in our factory. Moving the retail store to a new location and building gave us a larger store and much more space to display our products. This also freed up space to store more and different types of blocks and bricks in the factory. The plant was located across the river from the new retail building and yard. I graduated with an associate's degree in general business. Dee received her nursing degree as an LPN. Even before she got a job as a nurse, she began taking classes to earn her RN degree. A few months after graduating from Delta, we got married in September. We had a wonderful wedding, but of course, all weddings are for the sake of the bride. As a groom, I just tried not to get in the way. We flew to Jamaica for our honeymoon. Dee took a job at Marlette Regional Hospital. I started working for my father in the block-making business. Dad and the girls ran the office, and I ran the yard, helping clients with their purchases. Dee and I moved into a small rented house in Kingston. We planned to save money to build our own house in the near future. Our location in Kingston was closer to Marlette. This shortened Dee's commute. It took me about an hour to get to work from our house. Dee worked these crazy shifts of 12 hours, 3 days on, 3 days off. She worked 3 days on the day shift, 3 days off, and then 3 days on the night shift. I don't think I could work that shift. It would be too difficult to set up a sleep pattern. This year, colored and stamped concrete has become a significant part of our business. People with money wanted their driveways, decks, and pools to be made of colored concrete with a stamped pattern. I attended many workshops and training courses during the winter months. I tried to convince Dee to join me in these workshops, but she always insisted that she had to work. From the time we got married in September to December, we had sex like rabbits. But after I attended a 2-day workshop in mid-December, Dee began to act a little differently. The frequency of our sex began to decrease. At the beginning of our relationship, either of us could initiate sexual activity. Now it seemed like if we were going to have sex, I had to initiate it. Maybe if I had more experience with different women, I would have noticed the different signals she was giving. Unfortunately, as a newly married man, I didn't know what exactly to look for. I attended a week-long workshop in March. The seminars included training courses on working with colored and stamped concrete. The courses focus on learning how to install colored and stamped concrete. Our company planned to become the main supplier of these types of products in our area. I was supposed to be the head trainer for local contractors. I needed to know everything about colored concrete and stamping. I left on Sunday and was due back Friday evening. Most training courses ended on Thursday. There were several seminars on Friday morning. A large lunch was planned to conclude the conference. I missed the morning seminar and lunch on Friday. I went home straight after breakfast. It was a 4-hour journey to my beloved wife Dee's house. I pulled up to our house and saw several cars in the driveway. I parked on the street. I wonder who's visiting us. I entered the house and saw 2 guys sitting in the living room. "What's going on here?" I asked. "We wait our turn after the 3 guys in the bedroom finish having sex with the bitch," they both replied. "What?" I said, not quite understanding what I heard. "The woman who lives here will sleep with any of Jimmy's friends, and we're next," one of them said. Now some of her actions began to make sense. Over the past few months, Dee has been acting a little strange when I get home from work or conferences. I just couldn't figure out what the problem was. I went to our bedroom. What a shock. There were 2 white guys and 1 black guy having sex. Son of a bitch, I couldn't believe what I saw. I noticed that no one was using a condom. Damn, I wonder if I caught some disease from that bitch. No one seemed to be using any protection that I could notice. The 3 guys finished, got dressed, and left the room. "Hey, someone get me a wet towel so I can clean myself up and get ready for the next 2 guys," she said without a trace of guilt. Damn, I couldn't believe it. What a creature she is. Why didn't I see this? I thought to myself. God, how I loved her. I probably just ignored all the signs of a cheating wife. I went into the kitchen and threw up in the sink. I turned on the water to wash my face and rinse my mouth. I had just started drinking when the next 2 guys came into the bedroom. I heard the action begin. I entered the bedroom. I heard her ask one of the guys, "Who is this guy?" "I don't know. I think he's Jimmy's friend," he replied. "Tell him to stay. He'll be next," she said. Hell, she was so engrossed that she didn't even recognize me. I couldn't look at her anymore. I left the bedroom and returned to the kitchen. I noticed a large envelope on the kitchen table. I opened the envelope. It was full of pictures of her having sex with different guys. I took the envelope with me. I noticed her mobile phone on the table. I took it too. This left her without any connection. We didn't have a landline in the house. I left the house and drove my car to Saginaw. I called our company attorney, Rick Lohman. "Rick, this is David. I need a good divorce lawyer. Who can you recommend?" "What is the problem?" I told him what I discovered when I entered the house after being away for a week. "David, I have someone in mind. I will contact him and ask him to call you as soon as possible. Don't do anything stupid until you talk to him." About 20 minutes later, I received a call from Brian Kennedy. He was one of the best defense lawyers. I didn't know he took on divorce cases. "Hi, this is Brian Kennedy. Rick asked me to call you. Why don't you tell me what happened?" I told him everything that happened today and how I found a package with pictures of her having sex with different men. "Where are you now?" he asked. "On M46, about halfway to Saginaw. I should be in town in 30 minutes, I replied. Okay, when you get into town, come straight to my office. I'll start working on the divorce papers right away, he said. When I arrived at his building, the secretary showed me to his office. He nodded at me as he finished working on some papers. We discussed everything from beginning to end of this situation. We then discussed how to handle the divorce. I gave him the envelope, and he looked at all the pictures of her having sex with other men. He kept some of the more incriminating photographs and returned the rest to me. Okay, let's go over this again. Are you sure you really want a divorce? Brian asked again. I just want to get out of this. She destroyed all the trust and respect I had for her. She also ripped all the love I had for her from my heart. How can I stay with her after what I just saw? I answered. Okay, I'll work on this over the weekend and have the paperwork ready on Monday. We should be able to give it to her either Tuesday or Wednesday. Do you know her work schedule? We want to give it to her at work, right? He asked. She works Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. She has a night shift this week. Yes, I want her to be given the paperwork at work, I said. I'm going to see my dad and tell him what happened. Then I'll either get a motel room or stay with friends. I don't want to involve my family in this situation if I can avoid it. I'll go home on Monday and get my things. It would be great if you could deliver the papers to her on Tuesday. One of my advantages was that my father still owned all the shares in the company, and my sisters and I were essentially employees, I said. She can keep the car. I will sign the title for her. The car is paid off, and she will have to pay the insurance when it comes due. After all bills are paid, we will split the remaining monetary assets $5,050. I will continue to pay for the house until the divorce is finalized. After, in this case, she will have to make payments herself. All utilities are included in the rent for the house, I said. We discussed the terms of the settlement. We have slightly changed some of my points. In the divorce papers, we included a restraining order prohibiting her from coming within 200 feet of me and from being on company property. I stopped by the medical center to get tested for possible sexually transmitted diseases. Then I went to the office. My father and my sisters were still there. I called them into the conference room and told them about the upcoming divorce. They were shocked. We discussed how divorce can affect a business. There is no way she would get anything from the business or its profits, the father said. If Dee somehow finds a way to call here, please don't tell her you saw me or know where I might be. I have her cell phone. She'll have to find other ways to communicate, I said. They all assured me that they would keep their mouths shut and pretend they didn't know anything. We also came up with a story in case she showed up on Saturday to find me. After my sisters left, I showed my father some pictures of Dee with other guys. He was shocked. Son, I would never have believed that she could do this to you, he said, shaking his head sadly. I know, Dad. I'm still in shock about it, I replied with tears in my eyes. I left my father and called my friend. Hey, can I stay at your apartment for a couple of days? I asked. I knew that even if Dee realized that I might be here, he would never give me up to her. He thought she was never the right girl for me. Says, damn, David is late. He said he'd be home around 4:00 p.m., and it's already 6:00 p.m. I shouldn't have had sex with Jimmy's friends today. I know David will want sex when he gets home. I regret it. Day when I fell for Jimmy and his friends. He showed me those horrible pictures of me doing all these disgusting sex acts with different guys. He keeps blackmailing me with these pictures. I started looking for my cell phone to call David. Where did I put it? I searched the whole house looking for that damn phone, but to no avail. Damn, we don't have a landline in this stupid house. Everything is against me today. I remembered what happened that led to my problems. It started in mid-December when David went to an overnight conference. Dee, why don't you come with me to this conference? Asked David. I can't. We have one nurse on vacation and another is sick, so we're short-staffed for a week, I replied. I knew they wouldn't give me 2 days off. He left on Tuesday and won't be back until late Wednesday evening. I was scheduled to work Sunday through Tuesday on the day shift and possibly cover on Wednesday. Late Tuesday morning, the hospital informed me that I did not need to work on Wednesday. The person who was sick will return to his regular shift. David left on Tuesday morning. On Tuesday night, several girls were going to a bowling alley in Sandusky to watch their boyfriends bowl. They planned to have dinner and a few drinks while watching the games. Dee, would you like to join us tonight? They asked me. They knew David wouldn't be home until late Wednesday evening. No, I don't think so. I'm going to go home and rest, I said. They continued to persuade me until I agreed. I finished work a little early and said that I would meet them at the bowling alley between 19 and 19:30. When I arrived at the bowling club, I ordered a glass of wine. We ordered some cheese nachos for dinner and split them between the three of us. The portions were huge, more than we could eat. Luckily, the guys helped us eat them. Jimmy, who married my cousin, played on another team, so it was fun to talk to him. We always talked at family gatherings. When the guys finished the game, they moved the two tables together so we could have fun together. I had a great time with the girls and Jimmy. He went to the bar and came back with wine for me and beer for himself. After a while, I started to feel warm and dizzy. Jimmy jumped up and helped me. She seems to have had too much to drink. I'll take her home if that's okay, Jimmy suggested. No one from the group attached any importance to this. They knew Jimmy was my cousin, who, if not the family, will take care of the family. I'll take her home in her car, and you follow me in yours and pick me up from her house, he told his friend. Jimmy drove me home. He helped me sit down at the kitchen table. God, I was dizzy. He took orange juice out of the refrigerator and poured me a small glass. Drink a little, it will help settle your stomach and get some vitamin C. It should help ease the dizziness, he said. I drank and put my head in my hands on the table. Jimmy went to the door to let his friend in. I gave her a glass of orange juice with another shot of the sex drug on our date. We'll give her 10 minutes for the drug to take effect, and then we'll have fun with her in his bed, he said. After a short time, Jimmy helped me to the bedroom and began to undress me. I was powerless to stop him. His friends started taking pictures of him taking off my clothes. They did terrible things to me. Soon my body betrayed me. I started to like what they were doing. I seemed to like everything they did. I couldn't stop. I wanted more. All the time they took pictures of their actions with me. I'm not sure what time they left, but I was in pain. I slept until noon. When I woke up, I found a note on the kitchen table. The note told me to open my laptop and click on a folder called Photos. I did as I was told. I opened the folder and was shocked by what the photographs showed. I didn't know what to do, and I just sat there and cried. I deleted the photos, but I knew it was useless because they had the originals. I became their girl for sex. They used me on my days off when David was at work. Also, whenever he went to a seminar or conference, I was powerless to stop them or do anything against their demands. This only got worse. Our nasty neighbor came one day when I was home alone. He knocked on the door, and I opened it to see him standing there. "What do you need?" I asked. "I want what those guys are getting," he replied. "What are you talking about?" I asked. He showed me many photographs of different men coming and going from our house. "I was going to show them to your husband if I didn't get some of you," he said with a grin. "So what do I do now? Another guy I have to sleep with. Another one who has dirt on me. Soon every man in town will be here to have me." I let him into the house, and he had sex with me. I just lay there like a board. This continued until that fateful day in March. Then my world collapsed. I was in a panic. It was late Friday night, and still no sign of David. I never found my damn cell phone. I went to my neighbor and knocked on his door. He opened the door and grinned. "What do you want, honey? More sex?" he asked. "No, can I use your phone, please?" I asked. "What will I get in exchange?" "What do you want?" "How about you satisfy me?" "Fine." He let me in, and we went to his phone. When he answered the phone, he unbuttoned his trousers. I used his phone to call David, but the call went to voicemail. I left a message and told him that I had lost my cell phone. I returned home and locked the door behind me. I ran to the bathroom and brushed my teeth 10 times and then rinsed my mouth twice to get rid of the taste. I went to bed in fear. Why hasn't David come yet? I got up on Saturday morning. David's side of our bed was empty. I made myself a cup of coffee and toast. She got into the car and drove to Saginaw. I was going to look for my husband. I stopped at his workplace. I went inside and talked to his sisters. He drove to Chicago to drop off a friend he met at a conference. Somehow, his friend missed his ride, and David was kind enough to drive him home. He said he was trying to call you on your cell phone, but you didn't answer and the call went to voicemail, Pam said. Did he say when he'll be back? I asked. He thought he'd be back Sunday afternoon or evening, but he's not exactly sure, she replied. I used one of the office phones to call David. The call went to voicemail again. I left the same message as yesterday. David, I have to work Sunday through Tuesday nights. You can call me at the hospital Sunday night if you come back in the evening, I told him. David, my plan has worked so far. She thought I was in Chicago helping a friend. When she leaves for work on Sunday evening, I will return home and pick up my things. There wasn't much that I wanted or really needed. I hope she gets a summons on Tuesday. I'll have more information about this on Monday when I talk to my lawyer. I watched our house all Sunday. I wanted to see if anyone would come for entertainment. I only saw our neighbor Ed, who came to our house. She let him in for a few minutes and then he left. I watched as she opened the garage around 6 p.m. and drove to work. I followed her at a distance until she reached the hospital. I returned home and drove into the garage. I closed the garage door so no one could see me. I loaded my truck with the things I wanted to take with me. I thought, screw it, I'll eat while I'm here. I cleaned up after myself, then went into the bedroom and spread out the bed on my side as if I was sleeping there. I went back to the kitchen to leave some breakfast dishes in the sink. I wanted it to look like I was there. I left the garage and returned to Saginaw. Tomorrow will be D-Day, like Dee and the divorce papers. I spoke to my lawyer this afternoon. She'll be served with divorce papers Tuesday night at work, Brian said. I laughed all the way to Saginaw. I wish I could be a fly on the wall so I could see her reaction when she was served with a subpoena. I think this will be invaluable, says. Tuesday was almost a copy of Monday. I knew he was at home. He ate a little of the dinner I prepared for him. His side of the bed was rumpled, as if he had slept there, and there were breakfast dishes in the sink. Again, I went to Saginaw. I hoped he would be in the office. Again, he was not there, but his sisters were there. We had almost the same conversation as yesterday. I used the phone again to call David. Once again, the signal was poor and I could barely hear it. David, can you hear me? I asked. Barely, he replied. Are you still in Midland? Yes. Can I come see you? No, and you know why. Dee, I'll try to get out early today if everything goes according to plan. I'll also try to buy you a new cell phone. If things don't go according to plan, I'll take Wednesday afternoon off to be with you, he said. Okay, honey, I love you. Hey, Dee, can you hear me? The call ended, and I was lucky that I managed to talk to him before losing the signal. Damn cell phones, why do they always break when you need them most? I did the same as on Monday. I bought groceries and cooked dinner. I took a shower and got ready for work. Again, David was not there at 5 in the evening or at 6. I hope he has enough time to buy me a new mobile phone. I wonder what happened to mine. I waited for him in the house until it was time to go to work. I left dinner in the oven and left. At 10 o'clock in the evening, I was called to the nurse's station. There was a young girl standing there, chewing gum. Are you Diane Winters? She asked. Yes, why? Do you have an ID? I showed her my ID, which we must wear on duty. You have been handed a summons. She handed me a large envelope and took a photograph of me with the envelope in my hands. What do you mean subpoena served? She simply turned and left. Most of the nurses stood and watched our conversation. Jane, one of my best friends, grabbed the envelope from my hands. You have been served with divorce papers. Jane said. What? It can't be. Why did he do this? He loves me and I love him, I screamed. Jane opened the envelope. She looked at the documents. Yes, these are divorce papers indicating irreconcilable differences. He also has a restraining order prohibiting you from coming within 200 feet of him and any residence he is in. You are also prohibited from approaching his place of employment or any work objects, she said. I felt dizzy and fainted. The nurses immediately got to work. They quickly placed me on a gurney and stabilized me. After a while, I came to my senses and started crying. At least I have a cell phone again. It was in an envelope that this gum-chewing girl gave me. I wonder how she got it. I turned it on, but the battery was dead. I found someone who had a charger and connected the phone to the charger. After an hour, I had enough charge to make calls. I called David first to find out why he did this to me. The call went to voicemail. I was wondering who to call next when Jane stopped me. Honey, it's almost midnight and everyone is asleep. Why don't you wait until the morning to make calls? She said. I was a nervous wreck and finally at 3:30 a.m. the night supervisor called me into her office. Why don't you go home and rest? Then deal with your problems. You have a few days off, but be on your shift on Saturday as usual, she said. Okay, thanks. I'll be there on Saturday. Thanks again, I told her. I returned home in complete despair and exhaustion. I connected my mobile phone to the charger and fell asleep on the sofa. I couldn't believe I slept until 9 in the morning. I grabbed my phone from the charger and called David. It went to voicemail again. Left him a message. David, please call me. I love you very much, and I don't want a divorce. Then I called my father at work, told him what happened. He was furious and agreed to meet for lunch to discuss the situation. I took a shower and got dressed in my nice jeans and a nice sweater. Went to Saginaw. My first stop was David's workplace. I completely forgot about the restraining order. I went into the business and saw his sisters, but David was not there. Hey, is David here? I asked. No, he is not. According to his lawyer, you have a restraining order against him or entering this place. We were also told not to give you any information about David. So please leave, Pam said coldly. I was shocked. I left there furious that David's sisters had treated me this way. I drove around the city for an hour, not knowing what to do. After an hour of driving, I met my father for lunch. I showed him the divorce papers and the restraining order. What did you do to make him so angry? He asked. Nothing. I don't know why he's acting like this. He won't answer his cell phone to talk to me. I haven't seen him since he left for a week-long conference, I said. Don't you think he has another woman? Asked the father. I don't know. He never acted like he was cheating on me. He went to Chicago after a conference to take a friend. Maybe that friend was a woman and he cheated on me, I said. We ate in silence. My father read the divorce papers twice. At such moments, I wished that my mother was alive. Sometimes a girl just needs to talk to her mom. I wish my sister Kate and I were closer. It would be nice to discuss my problems with her. She was still mad at me for sleeping with her boyfriend. This was around the time David and I separated for a couple of months in college. David never knew about this, thank God. Well, I think we need to get you a lawyer. Did he leave you money? Have you checked the bank to see what he did with our accounts? Asked the father. No, Dad, I didn't do anything. You're the second person I talked to after David's sisters, I replied. In the divorce papers, David indicated that he would split everything $5,050. He would pay for the house and the car. He would also continue to pay for insurance and utilities until the divorce was finalized, and car insurance until the divorce was finalized, the father said. I cried while he spoke. I couldn't help myself. I still loved David with all my heart. Okay, I need to get back to work. Meet me at the house at 15:30. I'll try to find a lawyer to see him this afternoon. I have several candidates, the father said. I checked the bank, and we had $20,000 in savings. He left me $10,000. The current account was $2,000, and they were there. Our joint credit cards were paid off and canceled. 2 cards in my name were still active. I left the bank and returned to my father's house. I really didn't know what else to do. I was waiting for my father at home. The father returned home by 3:45 p.m. and made an appointment with a divorce lawyer he knew for 4:30 p.m. At 4:30 p.m., we were shown to the office of Sarah Connor, a divorce lawyer. She read the divorce papers twice. "Damn it, why did Brian Kennedy take this case?" she said out loud. "Why do you say that?" asked the father. "Brian is one of the best defense attorneys in our area. I've never seen him handle divorce cases," she replied. "Is it good or bad?" he asked. "I don't know, I think we'll find out," she said. For an hour, she interrogated me about everything that happened between me and David. She wanted me to start from the very first date until the moment of serving the divorce summons. Of course, I lied about my fidelity. When she finished, I gave her $1,000 as a down payment. She has taken the case and will begin preparing our response to the divorce papers tomorrow. Stay away from David for a while, don't call him, and don't violate the restraining order, she advised me. After my father and I left her office, I had hope for the first time that I could solve this mess with David. I tried to follow David several times to find out where he lived, but he must have recognized my car. He was losing me. I get lost easily, and he knows the streets like the back of his hand. David. Since she hired a lawyer, the situation has calmed down. I noticed that she tried to follow me a couple of times after work, but it was easy to get lost in traffic. I rented a small apartment for 6 months, with the option to extend the lease for another 6. I received the results of the blood test, and I did indeed have one of the sexually transmitted diseases. Considering all the partners with whom she had unprotected sex, this did not come as a surprise to me. I went to the doctor. He prescribed me medications. A couple of weeks later, I was tested again, and the illnesses were cleared. I thought, God, I love Dee so much. How could she do this to me? What did I do wrong? We had such a wonderful honeymoon. I remember it like it was yesterday. Everything we did together. How good was the sex? I still remember the first night in the hotel. These 6 days were full of wild sex every night and morning. When we returned home, we had sex every evening. And now she cheated on me and became a bitch. I vowed to fight and win, because a cheating bitch wife always needs to be punished. Burn this bitch, I thought. At the end of April, a friend of mine who is in the real estate business told me about a farmhouse with 80 acres of farming land and 20 acres of forest. This plot may be put up for auction or sale by inheritance. He gave me the address and I went to the place. This was what I was looking for. It took a lot of work, but it was doable. As I was inspecting the area, a car pulled up and a man got out. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I am inspecting this property. I might be interested in buying if the price is right," I replied. We introduced ourselves to each other. His parents owned the property, but they are both deceased. He was the executor of the will. We talked about possible terms of the deal. The estate would like 2,000 acres for the land and buildings, he said. The buildings are in poor condition and the price is a little high. How about 500 acres? I suggested. After long negotiations, we agreed on a price of $125,000 for the land and buildings. I will contact my lawyer to conduct a title check on this property. I also need to get my father's support. Give me a few days to sort everything out. I'll call you next week. I hope everything works out and we can complete the deal, I said. I spoke to my father and he fully supported me. I will buy this property and rent it to you until you buy it. This way we will protect her from the division of property in the event of a divorce, he said. Everything worked out well and we closed the deal at the end of May. I immediately began work on the house and barn. The barn was demolished and replaced with a 50x70 shed. I turned the 20x50 into an insulated workshop. The remaining 500 square feet was used for storage. The facade of the house was directed to the north. On the west side was a 2-car garage. I demolished the garage along with the shed. On the east side, I built my man cave, a 20x20 room. I updated the house with new appliances and furniture. I saved and restored most of the antiques. The second floor has been completely redone. I increased the size of the master bedroom, added a walk-in closet and a large bathroom. I also increased the size of the remaining bedrooms. I expanded the second floor of the house above the new man cave, adding about 400 square feet for more bedrooms. The second floor now contained the master bedroom and 4 smaller bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, 1 in the master bedroom and 1 in front of the stairs. The ground floor remains the same in size, with the exception of a new man cave on the east side of the house. I changed the size of several rooms. I turned the half bathroom into a full bathroom with a shower but no bathtub. All walls and ceilings were painted white. New carpet was installed in most rooms. I installed new hardwood floors in the kitchen, dining room, and bathroom. I added more insulation to the ceiling and walls. New siding and windows were installed. The exterior vinyl-clad walls were wrapped in Tyvek. The facade of the house was lined with natural stone. I cleaned and washed the stone, restored the damaged areas, and applied a protective coating for shine. I received a lot of help with the exterior work and new roof. I did the interior work mostly myself, with help on weekends. The carpeting for all rooms was made by a specialized company. I bought a solar panel with a 60% discount to generate electricity from the sun and added a wind generator to generate electricity from the wind. The seller installed all the equipment. I placed the solar panel and wind generator on the southern edge of the property. Consumers Power bought the excess electricity I generated. The whole house ran on electricity. I turned off the gas at the border of the site. Even the hangar used electricity for heating. According to my calculations, the payback will take from 5 to 10 years. Well, enough about the house. It took almost 3 years to furnish it. I also installed an above-ground pool with a deck around it in the backyard. In addition, I created a hot tub with a terrace between the pool and the house. The divorce dragged on. Dee resisted every step of the way, from consultations and therapy to direct threats. She ended up trying to get some of the company's profits, which brought us back to court in mid-July. After several hours of arguing about how to calculate my income from the company, I stood up. "Your Honor, may I say a few words?" I asked. I saw the judge rub his face and eyes. He looked at me and nodded. "Your Honor, we've been here for almost 2 hours, and it's 11 a.m. We haven't achieved anything. Maybe we'll take an early lunch break to calm our nerves. I would like to meet Dee alone if possible," I asked. Says, my eyes suddenly opened and a big smile appeared on my face. Here it is, my chance. Just David and I alone. I'll put on a big show and convince him to give up this stupid scam. The judge nodded to me and I nodded back. A lunch break is announced. We'll be back in court at 1 p.m. Bailiff, escort Mr. and Mrs. Torrad Winters to the jury room and make sure they are not disturbed, the judge told the bailiff. The bailiff led us into the jury room and closed the door behind us. I sprang into action. "David, could you please stop this stupid scam? I love you so much and miss you," I cried. "David." "Dee, can you shut up for once and let me talk?" I shouted. She looked at me with a stunned expression. I don't remember ever yelling at her or raising my voice. I took out my briefcase, put it on the table, and opened it. Inside, I found a large envelope and laid it out on the table, spilling out some of the photographs I had taken from the kitchen table when I left home in March. Her face contorted in surprise when she saw the photographs. Says, I was stunned that David was yelling at me. I watched as he threw the envelope on the table and photographs spilled out of it. Oh God, these are those dirty pictures of me having sex with different men. I was amazed that David had these photos, and I started crying. He handed me his handkerchief. After about 10 minutes, I was able to somehow pull myself together. "How long did you know?" I asked. "When I returned home in March from that conference I went to, I came back early to see you. I wanted to make love to you and take you to a nice restaurant and then have sex again," he said. I gasped when he said that. Imagine how I felt when I came home and saw 2 guys sitting in my living room. I asked what was going on. They said that they were waiting for their turn with the bitch who lives in this house. They said the bitch who lives here loves to have sex and will do it with anyone, he said angrily. I started crying again. After their words, I went to the bedroom, and here's the surprise. There you were, having sex with 3 different men, he said. I tried to interrupt him, but he raised his hand. Remember this? I'll never forget the sight of you 4, David said. We paused to drink water. Then David continued. I left the bedroom in disgust. I noticed a large envelope on the kitchen table. It was full of pictures of you having sex with different men. I took the envelope and your cell phone and left, he continued. So that's where my phone went, I said out loud. Would you like to tell me how it all happened? He asked with contempt. It started with my cousin Jimmy in December. It was when you left for that one-night conference that you wanted me to go to with you. I couldn't because we didn't have enough staff at work. But on Tuesday afternoon, they told me I wasn't working on Wednesday, but by then you had already left, I said. I took a sip of water, trying to collect my thoughts. Keep going, there must be something else here, he said. Some girls from work were going to the bowling alley in Sandusky to watch their boys play in the league. They convinced me to go with them, saying they had great nachos. So I went, thought I'd eat nachos, drink a couple of cocktails, and go home. But my cousin Jimmy was there. He played for another team, so I stayed to watch the match end. After the game, they all gathered a couple of tables together for a party. I took another sip of water to moisten my dry throat and continued. Jimmy brought me a drink from the bar. After about an hour, I started feeling hot and dizzy. He offered to take me home, and no one objected. After all, he was my cousin. His friend followed us home. When we arrived, Jimmy gave me a glass of orange juice. He said vitamin C was good for hangovers. 10 minutes later, they had already undressed me and had sex with me in our bedroom. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop, and I loved it. All this time they were taking photographs. Jimmy then used these photos to blackmail me into having sex anytime he or his friends wanted. Even our neighbor Ed got involved. He took a bunch of pictures of all the cars and men who came to our house. I found myself in a position where I had to do this. Everything got out of control from that moment on. I finished my story, sobbing. David. Dee, we were a team, life partners, soul mates, best friends. Why didn't you tell me Jimmy put something in your drink? Why didn't you say that he forced you to have sex with him and his friend? We could stop everything right away. I would come to your defense if you were honest with me, I said. Dee sat crying her eyes out. But now it's too late. You seem to really enjoy this sex with the 5 guys I saw. I don't see any way for us to get back together. You destroyed all the love that was in my heart for you. I can never trust you again. I'll always think that when you're not with me, you're sleeping with a bunch of Jimmy's friends. Then I will blame you for all the betrayals. It just won't work. I can't live like this, I told her. Dee still sat there, not saying a word, just crying and sobbing. So here's what you're going to do. We'll get out of here and you'll sign the initial version of the divorce papers. They are fair for both sides. I will tell the judge that we agree to the divorce as it stands. You will tell him the same thing, I said. She looked at me with her red eyes full of tears. Oh, David, I'm so sorry things got out of hand. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about this right away. I hope one day in the future you can forgive me for what happened. I'll sign the damn papers, she said. When we got up, I looked at my watch. It was 13:15. We've been here for over 2 hours. We walked into the courtroom and all eyes were on us. She sat down and signed all the copies of the divorce papers. I've already signed them. She gave them to her lawyer, who checked them carefully. Your Honor, may we have a few minutes to speak with my client? Sarah asked the judge. He nodded. Sarah and Dee whispered for a few minutes. Dee then nodded her head. Sarah handed the papers to the judge. He looked through them. You were together for more than 2 hours and came to the conclusion that this marriage cannot be saved. Right? He asked both of us. We both stood up. Yes, Your Honor. He spent a few minutes signing the divorce papers. This marriage between David Winters and Diane Winters is now dissolved by the consent of both parties, he said, slamming the gavel. The divorce case is closed. That's just how I became a free man. I looked at Dee and she was crying. I walked up to her and hugged her. I'm sorry and I wish you the best for the future, I told her. David, I will always love you and I'm so sorry for what happened, Dee cried. As I turned to leave, her father Frank stood in my way. He looked very angry and the Dee brothers were standing behind him. Frank, I told you that when this is over, I will talk to you about what happened. I looked at her brothers and told them to take Dee out into the hallway and wait for me to finish talking to their dad, I said. The brothers took Dee away. Frank and I sat down at the table. I opened my briefcase and took out a large envelope. I briefly told him what happened and showed him the photographs. He just looked at the photos and tears flowed down his cheeks. I just can't believe she could do all this, he said. Frank, it's best that you get the full story from Dee. What she needs most now is your help to get through all of this. You need to get her out of Kingston and back home, closer to you. She needs to get out of the hospital in Marlette and away from the guys who did this, I told him. He agreed with me and returned the photographs to me. We walked out the door together. Frank walked up to Dee and the boys who were sitting in the hallway. Dee started crying again when she saw the look on his face that he knew what happened. He hugged her. Frank, Jimmy is mine, I said. He looked at me with a grim expression and nodded. I'd like to help, he said. I nodded in response. Fine. I've been following Jimmy since August. It seemed that Dee wasn't the only girl he was blackmailing. My team of friends found the addresses and names of the girls living there. Some girls were married, others just had boyfriends. It appears that Dee was one of his first victims. They only blackmailed a couple of girls at a time. Once Jimmy was done with them and moved on to the next victim, he would sell the girls to his friends, just like he did with Dee. As far as we knew, there were 7 girls under his blackmail. I still rented a house in Kingston until the end of December. We used it as our base of operations. Dee's sister, Katie, was to be our bait. She started going to the bowling alley at the end of October. For the first few weeks, she played hard to get. Finally, she and Jimmy had 1 drink each. I'm sure Jimmy decided that since he had Dee, there would be no problem with Katie, and she would be a great addition to his collection. She was more beautiful and had a great body. She was going to be a great addition to his group of girls. Where are you going? It's too early, Jimmy told Kathy. I have to go. I work the early shift on Sunday. We'll see you next Friday, Katie told Jimmy. Jimmy smiled and nodded. See you Friday. He walked her into the parking lot and watched her get into the car. The bait was taken. Now it was necessary to see if he would swallow the hook. It was Friday evening, 19th. Katie was sitting at a table with a few of her friends when Cousin Jimmy showed up with his friend. They joined Katie and her friends at the table. Let the party begin, Jimmy grinned. After a few drinks, Jimmy started talking to Katie. Where do you live? Jimmy asked. I live in Dee's old house with my boyfriend. He works the second shift in Saginaw and usually gets home between 1:00 and 1:30 a.m. I work part-time at a hospital as a nurse, she said. We wanted Jimmy to think that her place was not safe to meet and hoped that he would bring her to his house. That way we could search his house for evidence. Katie took a risk by taking the drug Jimmy put on her, but she was willing to do it to catch the bastard. The time was 21:00 and Jimmy went to the bar. He grabbed a drink for Katie and a beer for himself. He made sure he spiked her drink with the drug. About 20 minutes after she drank, she began to feel hot and drowsy. She seems to have had too much to drink. I'll take her home. I know where she lives, Jimmy told the group. He saw Katie getting into her car last Saturday. He knew what kind of car she was driving, and he helped her into her car. The bait is captured. They get into her car. Jimmy is driving. His accomplice is following in his car, my friend said on the radio. We didn't want to leave any traces by using mobile phones. My friend returned to the bowling alley bar. He drank and talked to the girls Katie was sitting with for a few minutes. Then he finished his drink and left. Another friend of mine followed Jimmy at a distance, radioing in his direction and location. I was already at Jimmy's house with Frank and another friend of mine. Jimmy followed our plan and brought Katie to his home. I also had a fellow road watcher, Jimmy. He reported that Jimmy had just turned into his own driveway. Soon we heard two cars pull into Jimmy's driveway. Jimmy's house was a little isolated from its neighbors. Jimmy came in support of Katie. He sat her down at the kitchen table. His accomplice followed them. They didn't notice me sitting in a chair in the living room. I'll bring her orange juice with another dose of the drug. Let's wait 10 minutes and have fun, just like with her sister Dee. I'm going to have sex with her hard, Jimmy grinned. I cleared my throat. They both turned around sharply at the sound. What the hell are you doing here? Jimmy screamed. Jimmy, it's time to pay for your crimes, I said, calmly waving the gun. At that moment, my friend came out of the other room, and two others entered through the front door. My third friend arrived a little later. Grab them, I said. We tied them up, taped their mouths, and blindfolded them. Now they were both scared to death. Frank came in after we subdued them. He picked up Katie and laid her on the sofa. We sat down at the kitchen table with Jimmy and his friend tied to chairs. Okay, Jimmy, it's time to play 20 questions. For every wrong answer, I will punish you. If you understand me, just nod. He nodded. I made noise with a hammer, pliers, screwdriver, file, torch, and scalpel. Jimmy, these are my tools of destruction, I said, showing them to him. What the hell do you think you're doing? You can't break into my house and attack me. I will report you to the police, he shouted. Jimmy, 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 you're going to tell me all about your blackmail scheme and the money you made from it. Then maybe I'll let you both live. If I don't get the information and all the pictures and money you made from these girls, then the pain you both will feel will make you want to die, I said. Go to hell. I don't know what you're talking about, he snapped. Jimmy, do you know who I am? I'm Dee's ex-husband. You ruined our marriage by turning her into a girl for sex. I have nothing to lose, and you have something. I have an alibi for tonight, and we have all night to get this information, I told him quietly. I was the only one he could identify. The others were wearing masks, and they didn't speak when he could hear them. It took us almost all night, but I got all the information I needed. All the photos were stored on his hard drive, and he had a hidden backup drive in his safe. We opened the safe with his help, and there was a backup disk inside. The safe also contained a notebook with the names, addresses, and telephone numbers of all the girls he blackmailed. His bank book was also there, but there wasn't much money in his account. We found a large bag containing almost $100,000 hidden in a false wall in the closet. I assumed it was his pimp money. I was afraid that he might have some of this information in a safe deposit box. I don't have one, he told me. We have not found any records or clues to support its existence. In the safe, we found a certain amount of sex drugs. We transported the drugs and put them in a box so that the police could find them. I closed the safe and locked it. I kept half the money for myself and gave $10,000 to each of my 4 friends for their help. I gave the other half to Frank. There's $50,000 here, Frank. Save this money for Dee when she really needs money. Take it from here to help her, I told him. He took the money and hugged me tightly. There were tears in his eyes, and he nodded to me in gratitude. He picked Katie up from the couch and left. Jimmy and his friend were badly maimed. We all wore disposable medical gloves with rubber gloves over them. Besides the fact that Jimmy knew who I was, there was no chance they would be able to identify the others except Katie. But I figured it out. Her boyfriend would confirm to the police that he met Jimmy in the parking lot while he was helping Katie into the car. So he drove Katie home in his car, and Jimmy followed him in her car. He then drove off with his friend after leaving the car with Katie. The people at the bar will tell the police that Katie left with Jimmy. One of my friends will confirm the story of Katie's boyfriend. When the police question him, he will say that he just pulled into the parking lot and watched what was happening. Before I left, I called 911 from Jimmy's phone. I moaned and groaned into the phone and then threw the phone on the floor. We left the house and left Jimmy's fate in the hands of the police. I knew that if they searched the house, they would find drugs. Then Jimmy will get into serious trouble for drug possession. Dee and several other girls stepped forward. They told the police what Jimmy did to them. Jimmy then ratted out most of the other guys who participated. It was a big mess, and many of these guys were given serious prison sentences. The beating Jimmy and his buddy received seemed to disappear into thin air. The big news was drugged sex and a blackmail scheme. And subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.